The Colombian peace talks in Havana resume, plus a police officer in Mexico confesses to abducting and torturing 5 young men. Thanks so much for joining us. For teleSur's English, I'm Cody Weddle in Caracas, Venezuela. This is From the South. To begin today, we start with those Colombian peace talks. The talks between the FARC rebels and the Colombian government have resumed in Havana. Although both parties had set a March 23rd deadline, most now consider that unlikely. The FARC leader, Iván Márquez, said today during a press conference that by the end of the year, Colombians would enjoy peace, an assertion that has cast doubts on the deadline. One of the biggest issues still pending for discussion is the paramilitary groups that still operate in Colombia. And today marks 25 years since Colombia's Popular Liberation Army signed a truce with the government and handed in its weapons. The truce was a shimmer of light for the Colombian people. However, it also showed that the conflict's roots were not resolved by the demobilization of armed groups. And the brother of former president and now Senator Álvaro Uribe, who has been detained for his role in creating and supporting paramilitary groups, will appeal to the Organization of American States. That was announced at a press conference headed by Jaime Granados, who is Uribe's attorney. Despite mounting evidence against Uribe, the defense is claiming that the case shows political persecution against the opposition party, Centro Democrático, founded by the former president. Mexican drug kingpin Joaquin El Chapo Guzman has asked to be extradited to the U.S. He said he will plead guilty if he is transferred to a minimum security U.S. prison and condemned the conditions in the maximum security jail where he is being held there in Mexico. Sources close to the drug lord have claimed he fears for his life in Mexico. A policeman in Veracruz has confessed to abducting and torturing 5 young men who were gruesomely murdered. Mexican Deputy Minister of the Interior for Human Rights, Roberta Campa, confirmed that the youth were forcibly disappeared by state police officers and handed over to the drug gang Jalisco New Generation Cartel, an offshoot of the Sinaloa cartel, which is growing in power across the country. And an influenza outbreak is developing in Mexico. Several cities across the country have confirmed they lack enough medication to treat the disease, which is why the outbreak is becoming worse. Health authorities say that it is also associated with the late entrance of winter there. 98 people have died so far. Brazil's Congressional Ethics Committee has given a green light to continue the impeachment process against Speaker Eduardo Cunha over the Petrobras bribery scandal. Cunha, who successfully tried to impeach President Dilma Rousseff, is being investigated himself by authorities for some $5 million hidden in foreign accounts, which are believed to be derived from the Petrobras corruption scheme. In Peru now, a journalistic investigation backed by official studies contradicts the government's stance and supports those who protest against the Trans-Pacific Partnership Treaty. Now, that treaty was signed by the Andean nation and other 11 countries this past October 5th, and it needs to be ratified by Congress from the capital of the country. Now, we turn to our correspondent, Raul Mora.
So far, Peru has had 5 marches in protest against the TPP. One of the most cited reasons to oppose the treaty is that it will promote the monopolization of medicines by large pharmaceutical corporations and increase prices of medicines. The Minister of Commerce and Tourism has taken upon the task of publicly defending the treaty.
With the TPP, access to medicines is absolutely guaranteed, and the TPP is not going to generate an increase in prices of medicines.
However, journalists Rocío Romero and Fabiola Torres published an investigation in the website Ojo Público, where they revealed that government studies contradict the statements of Minister Silva.
Two studies from the Ministry of Health contradict the Minister of Foreign Trade and Tourism, Magali Silva, because they do show that the price of biological medicines will increase with this agreement since there is a variation in the test data period.
In one of the examples highlighted by the journalistic investigation, based on official data, it shows that with the TPP, the state will have to spend tens of millions of dollars more within the next 20 years just to be able to provide one medicine for breast cancer. Rael Mora, Telesur, Peru.
Venezuela has asked the UN Human Rights Commission to evaluate the amnesty law approved by the National Assembly in the country, which would free politicians imprisoned for inciting violence and other criminal acts. Now, the proposed law further awards amnesty to people jailed over crimes such as property damage, arson, and corruption, which is why experts consider it unlikely to meet international standards.
Voted the Jamaica Labour Party, the JLP, into office on February 25th, removing the People's National Party, PNP, which under the stewardship of Portia Simpson Miller had governed the Caribbean country since December 2001. Now, there have been quite a few developments since last Thursday's surprise upset by the JLP. Firstly, a number of recounts are taking place in key constituencies. The election results were close. On election night, a preliminary count of 33 seats to 30 gave the JLP the win. That margin has since narrowed to 32 seats to 31 after a recount in the St. Mary Southeastern constituency. The JLP says it will be filing for another recount. Meanwhile, both the outgoing and incoming prime ministers have appealed for calm as the recounting continues. Earlier today, the Jamaica Defense Force, the JDF, announced it will put more soldiers on the ground in Jamaica as post-election tensions rise. The JDF says this will last from February 29th to March 7th. Now, elections observers from the Caribbean Community, CARICOM, and the Organization of American States, the OAS, have praised the conduct of the general elections. They say the results reflect the will of the people. Meanwhile, Prime Minister-designate Andrew Holness is expected to meet with officials from the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, this week. Holness has also met with the country's Governor-General, Sir Patrick Allen, to discuss the transition of government. So many issues in Jamaica, and we will have updates when they become available. The Electoral Office of Jamaica is expected to update the country sometime today on the elections results. From Castries, St. Lucia, Alison Kentish, TeleSur.
There we saw Alison Kentish reporting on elections in Jamaica after a surprising result there. We will continue to stay with her for more as those recounts continue. Moving on now, after the U.S. held its Super Tuesday, where 12 states voted for presidential candidates, the numbers show a much clearer race. Our correspondent's covering it all there from Washington, Bianca Perez.
Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump were the winners of most Super Tuesday states. The Republican frontrunner had 7 victories, followed by Ted Cruz, who won 3 states, and Marco Rubio, who had 1 victory. As far as Democrats go, Hillary Clinton won also 7 states, while Bernie Sanders had 4 victories. Where does this leave the candidates standing? Currently, Donald Trump has 316 delegates, Ted Cruz has 226, and Marco Rubio has 106. On the Democratic side, Hillary Clinton has 1,034, including some superdelegates, and Bernie Sanders has 408. Bianca Perez, TeleSur, Washington, D.C.
The cessation of hostilities agreement for Syria that was drawn up by the United States and Russia is seen by the UN as an opportunity to revive peace talks, which collapsed before they had even started. Now, in the meantime, the hope is that more humanitarian assistance can be provided to the people there.
The hope is that we can sustain the cessation of hostilities, deepen it so that it is truly a cessation of hostilities, and continue to increase the provision of humanitarian assistance. There too, we've seen progress over the last week in the areas that were initially designated under the agreement. Now we have to broaden out to even harder to reach populations that are besieged and make sure assistance is getting to them.
The EU has approved a $760 million fund in emergency humanitarian aid to help Greece with the mass influx of refugees. The funds may be also distributed to some other countries.
Now, more than ever, member states and the EU need to work hand in hand to reinforce each other's actions, and in this way, the European Union can provide a united response to humanitarian suffering. There is a European solution to this crisis.
And in France, refugees facing eviction from the camp in Calais, known as the Jungle, sewed their lips together to protest their treatment by the country. At least 5 men staged the protests and held banners as bulldozers cleared ramshackle homes in the slum for a 3rd day in a row. Now, the camp is home to around 4,000 migrants and refugees, many of whom are intent on reaching Britain. Earlier today, the UN Security Council unanimously approved the toughest sanctions in decades against North Korea. Now, this is in response to North Korea's recent nuclear and missile tests. The resolution was drafted by the United States and China. The sanctions would be the first to require North Korean cargo ships and aircraft to be inspected before entering and after leaving the country. They would also prohibit small arms and other conventional weapon sales to North Korea.
Will those in favor of the draft?
A tsunami alert has been called off in Indonesia after a 7.8 magnitude earthquake hit the island of Sumatra earlier Sunday. There were no immediate reports of damage or information of any deaths there. The International Committee of the Red Cross has distributed several thousand almond trees to farmers in the Gaza Strip. Now, the farmers' lands along with border with Israel have been ravaged by war. The Red Cross donated almost 4,000 almond trees to 5 different varieties to many farmers in the area. Palestinians continue protesting for the release of the founder of the Palestinians Talent Club. With an explanation now, our correspondent there, Noor Harazin.
Dozens of talented Palestinian youth gathered in front of the headquarters of the Red Cross in western Gaza City Wednesday morning in solidarity with Majd Jawad Aweda, the director of the Palestinian Got Talent show. Aweda was detained by Israeli occupation forces last week. His father, Jawad, said that his son was arrested for no clear reason, despite traveling with a permit issued by Israeli authorities. The 23-year-old Aweda is one of the founders of the Palestinian Talent Club, which is one of very few local Palestinian clubs interested in improving the talent of Palestinian youths in the light of tightened blockade that has been stopping the Palestinian people from traveling abroad. Aweda was arrested along with 6 of his show members at the Erez checkpoint in northern Gaza Strip last Tuesday. The team was on his way to the West Bank to prepare for the launch of the talent show in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank.
I call on President Mahmoud Abbas Abu Mazen and all the human rights organizations to promptly intervene to reveal the destiny of my son Mahaj. Mahaj has been detained by the Israeli authorities for 9 days now. We do not know what is actually going on with him or why he was arrested, although he's not affiliated with any political faction.
Palestine is the first Arab country to get an official license from the British mother company that sponsors the Global Got Talent show. This is its 5th season. The program is an opportunity for talented Palestinians inside and outside the territories to show the world that they love life and have many things apart from resistance to care about. Noor Harazin, teleSur's TV, Gaza.
Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan is in Nigeria, where he held a diplomatic meeting with Nigeria's president. Erdogan wants to bolster trade and security ties with Nigeria under a new strategic partnership. Erdogan is also keen to open up new markets for his country's exporters in fast-growing African economies. Ex-English footballer Adam Johnson has been found guilty of 1 count of sexual activity with a child. Now, more specifically, the player has been found guilty of sexual activity with a 15-year-old girl involving penetration, as it says there. The jury reached a majority 10-2 guilty verdict on that charge, but cleared him on another. The trial judge said that a prison sentence is inevitable, but has allowed Johnson to be released on bail before sentencing. The Oscar-winning team of the animated short titled A Bear Story was proudly received by President Michelle Bachelet in Chile on Monday. The 11-minute film was the first Chilean work to be nominated in the animated short category and also the country's first ever winner. The film was about a papa bear longing to be reunited with his family, but is really a metaphor for the way that the country's former regime destroyed families. After almost a year in space, U.S. astronaut Scott Kelly and Russian cosmonaut Mikhail Korniko touched down on Earth earlier today. Their 340-day mission aboard the International Space Station is twice the length of a normal stay. Their extended tour is part of an effort to study the effects of long-term duration spaceflight on the human body.
And this was what we were waiting for. We actually have replays now of the Soyuz capsule was well under.
Wow, welcome back. It must be a culture shock of sorts to be back on Earth after so much time. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We'll see you back here tomorrow.